Hello, hello, hello mga kaibigan. Ito po muli ang inyong kaibigan, si Jeff the Blind Explorer. Sa sandaling ito mga kaibigan, meron po ako ditong inihanda ng mga series of audio books regarding sa biology. Ayan mga kaibigan, so naisip ko na sa halip na magla-livestream ako, paulit-ulit nilang ginagawa ko sa livestream, kumakanta, tumutugtog. Ngayon, ibahin naman natin ang ating explorer, ano? Mag-upload po tayo dito ng series of audiobooks regarding sa iba't ibang mga informations na kapupulutan po natin ng kaalaman. So hopefully, supportahan po ninyo dito, supportahan po ninyo ako rito sa aking bagong adventure dito sa aking channel. At tiyak po na mas marami po kayong matututunan ukol sa iba't ibang mga bagay. Ito po ang inyong kaibigan, si Jeff the Blind Explorer, nagsasabing, hindi ka na magbabasa, makikinig ka na lang, pero matututo ka naman. Ayan, ito na po ang introduction to the biology by Jeff the Blind Explorer.
Introduction to Biology. Biology is the study of living things. It is a branch of science, and like other sciences, it is a way of understanding nature. The word biology is derived from the Greek words bios meaning life and logos meaning to study, so the literal meaning of biology is the study of life. Biologists, the person who study the biology. Biologists deal with the living part of nature and with the non-living things which affect the living things in any way. They strive to understand, explain, integrate and describe the natural world of living things. Aspects of biology. Biology is the study of life, but there are certain aspects of life that lie beyond the scope of the science of biology, like the answers to the questions: what is the meaning of life? Why should there be life? These are the questions not usually taken up by biologists and are left to philosophers and theologians. Biologists mainly deal with the matters relating to how life works. What is life? It is very difficult to define life. However, life, for biologists, is a set of characteristics that distinguish living organisms from non-living objects, including dead organisms. Characteristics of living things. Living organisms are highly organized, are complex entities, are composed of one or more cells, contain genetic program of their characteristics, can acquire and use energy, can carry out and control numerous chemical reactions, can grow in size, maintain fairly internal constant environment, produce offspring similar to themselves, respond to changes in their environment. Any object possessing all these characteristics simultaneously can be declared as a living thing and is an object for biological studies. Why we classify the biology. The science of biology is a very wide-based study. It includes every aspect of a living thing. Therefore, volumes and volumes of information are available under this major head. It is but natural to divide this science into quite a number of branches for our convenience of comprehending and studying biology. Some major fields of biology. Embryology, a branch of biology dealing with embryos and their development. It deals with process of development of an individual from the zygote to whole organism. Physiology, the branch of biology that deals with the normal functions of living organisms and their parts. Morphology, it is a branch of biology dealing with the study of the form and structure of organisms and their specific structural features. It may be external morphology. This includes aspects of the external appearance, shape, structure, color, pattern, size of an organism. Internal morphology or anatomy. It deals with internal gross structure of parts of an organism. Histology, it is microscopic study of tissue of an organism. Paleontology, it is a branch of biology dealing with study of fossils. It is the way of getting information about history of early life. Evolution, It is the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed from earlier forms during the history of the Earth. Genetics, the branch of biology that deals with heredity information, especially the mechanisms of hereditary transmission from parents to offspring. Zoogeography, the biological study of the geographic distribution of animals on Earth, especially the causes and effects of such distribution. Taxonomy, it is a branch of biology that deals with the description, identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. Cytology, the branch of biology concerned with the structure and function of cells. Molecular biology is a branch of biology which deals with the structure of organisms, the cells and their organelles at molecular level. Environmental biology is the study of organisms in relation to their environment. This includes interaction between the organism and their inorganic and organic environment, especially as it relates to human activities. Microbiology, this is the study of microorganisms which include bacteria, viruses, protozoa and microscopic algae and fungi, etc. Freshwater biology, this branch of biology deals with the organisms living in freshwater bodies, i.e., rivers, lakes, etc. and physical and chemical parameters of these water bodies. Marine biology, this is study of life in seas and oceans. This includes the study of the marine life and the physical and chemical characteristics of the sea acting as factors for marine life. Parasitology. This is the branch of biology which deals with the study of parasites. The structure, mode of transmission, life histories and host, parasite relationships are studied in parasitology. Human biology. It deals with the study of man. This includes form and structure, function, histology, anatomy, morphology, evolution, genetics, cell biology and ecological studies, etc. of human beings. Social biology. This is the branch of biology which deals with the study of social behavior and communal life of human beings. Biotechnology, it deals with the use of living organisms, systems or processes in manufacturing and service industries. Bioelements definition, these elements are commonly used in forming the chemical compounds from which living organisms are made. Explanation, hundreds of chemical reactions are involved in maintaining life of even the simplest organism. In view of this, it is something of a surprise to find that of the 92 naturally occurring chemical elements, only 16 are commonly used in forming the chemical compounds from which living organisms are made. These 16 elements and a few others which occur in a particular organism are called bioelements. Types of bioelements. Major bioelements. Only few number of elements are required by living organisms in relatively high concentration. These elements are called as major or primary elements. E.g., in the human body only 6 bioelements account for 99% of the total mass. Oxygen 65%. Carbon 18%, hydrogen 10%, nitrogen 3%, calcium 2%, phosphorus 1%. Minor bioelements. These elements are present in very small amounts. It usually forms 1% of organism. These are also called as secondary elements. Examples are potassium 0.35%, sulfur 0.25%, chlorine 0.15%, sodium 0.15%, magnesium 0.05%, iron 0.004%. Trace elements. These are present in very minute quantity, however these are necessary for proper functioning of organisms. Examples are copper trace, manganese trace, and zinc trace, iodine trace. Facts of bioelements. The fact that the same 16 chemical elements occur in all organisms, and the fact that their properties differ from those in the non-living world, shows that bioelements have special properties which make them particularly appropriate as basis for life. Level of biological organization. Complexity in organization. Biological organization is not simple. It has high degree of complexity because of which the living organisms are able to carry out a number of processes, some very complicated, which distinguish them from the non-living things. Regulatory mechanisms. A living thing has built-in regulatory mechanisms which interact with the environment to sustain its structural and functional integrity. Protoplasm. A living thing is, therefore, composed of highly structured living substance or protoplasm. Levels. In order to understand the various phenomena of life, biologists, for their convenience, study the biological organization at different levels, starting from the very basic level of subatomic and atomic particles to the organism itself and beyond, which the study of community, population and entire world are included. Atomic and subatomic levels. All living and non-living matter is formed of simple units called atoms and subatomic particles such as protons, electrons and neutrons. Molecular level. Molecule. In organisms, elements usually do not occur in isolated forms. The atoms of different elements combine with each other through ionic or covalent bonding to produce compounds. This stable form is called a molecule. The different types of bonding arrangement permit biological molecules to be constructed in great variety and complexity. Common bioelements. Hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur are the most common atoms found in biological molecules. Types of molecules. Micromolecules. These may be micromolecules with low molecular weight like CO2, H2O etc., or macromolecules with high molecular weights, e.g. starch, proteins etc. Biological world has two types of molecules, organic and inorganic. Organic molecule. An organic molecule is any molecule containing both carbon and hydrogen, e.g. glucose, ATP, amino acids etc. Inorganic molecules do not include carbon and hydrogen together in a molecule, e.g. CO2, H2O. An organism is usually formed by enormous number of micro and macro molecules of hundreds of different types. Abundant molecules. Some most important and abundant organic molecules in organisms are glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, glycerol, and nucleotides like ATP, ADP, and AMP etc. Organelles and cell. Different and enormous number of micromolecules and macromolecules arrange themselves in a particular way to form cells and their organelles. Organelles. Organ of cell. It has become clear that functions of cell are accomplished by specialized structures within the cell comparable to the organ of body. These subcellular structures are called as organelles. Mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum etc. The arrangement of the organelles speaks of the division of labor within the cell. The prokaryotes have only a limited number and type of organelles in their cytoplasm. Eukaryotes are rich in number and kinds of membranous organelles. A cell membrane is however present in all cells, whether prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Cell. The structural and functional unit of living organism. In case of simple organisms like bacteria and most protists, the entire organisms consist of a single cell. In most fungi, plants and animals, the organism may consist of up to trillions of cells. Tissue level definition. In multicellular animals and plants, groups of similar cells are organized into loose sheets or bundles performing similar functions. These are called tissues. Each tissue has a particular function in the life of the organism. Examples are: in animal, muscle tissues are specialized for contraction, movement, glandular tissues are specialized for secretion. In plants, xylem tissues are specialized for conducting water and minerals. Phloem tissues are specialized for translocation of sugar, proteins etc. Organ level definition. Different tissues having related functions assemble together in a structure to carry out its function with great efficiency. Such structures are called organs and they are specialized to perform particular functions. Example. For example, stomach, which is an organ, has a function of food digestion. Protein part has a secretory epithelium which secretes the gastric juice, and a muscular tissue, smooth, for contracting the walls of the stomach and mixing the food with the enzyme thoroughly and moving the food to the posterior end. In animal, organ formation is far more complex and defined. The complexity of the organ systems of animals is associated with a far greater range of functions and activities than is found in plants. In plants, the organ level of organization is much less definite in plants than it is in animals. But it can be distinguished among roots, stems, leaves and reproductive structures. Clear-cut functions, the distinguishing features, can be assigned to each of these structures. Roots are involved in anchoring the plant, storage of food and procuring water. Leaves are primary organs for food manufacture. Flowers of other reproductive structures are involved in producing the next generation reproduction. Significance of organ formation. The formation of organs also has a selective value because this leads to an efficient accomplishment of their functions both qualitatively and quantitatively. Organ system. Different organ having related functions assembled together in a system where total functions involved in one process or phenomenon are carried out. Example: digestive system, excretory system, circulatory system. Individual, whole organism. Definition: various organs in plants and various organ systems in animals are assembled together to form an individual, the whole organism. Characteristics: the whole organism has its individuality as far as its characteristics are concerned. It is different from other members of the same species in certain respects. Organism works as a whole and it interacts and responds to the environmental changes as a whole. Coordination: the various functions, processes, activities of an organism are coordinated. For instance, if a man is engaged in continuous and hard exercise, not only his muscles are working but there is an increase in the rate of respiration and heartbeat to supply the muscles with increased oxygen and food which they need for continuous exercise. In an animal, all the systems work in coordination with each other. In animals, the coordination is achieved by means of nervous system and endocrine system, whereas in plants only long-term regulation of activities is brought about by hormones. Population definition. A population is a group of living organisms of the same species located in the same place at the same time. Examples are the number of rats in a field of rice, the number of students in your biology class, or human population in a city. Population is a higher level of biological organization than organism, whole, because here a group of organisms of the same species is involved. Attribute of population. This level of organization has its own attributes which come into being by living together of a group of organisms of the same species. Some of these attributes are: gene frequency, the ratio of a particular allele to the total of all other alleles of the same gene in a given population. Gene flow. Gene flow, also known as gene migration, is the transfer of alleles or genes from one population to another. Age distribution, the frequency of different ages or age groups in a given population. Population density is a measure of the number of organisms that make up a population in a defined area. Population pressure, the force exerted by a growing population upon its environment, resulting in dispersal or reduction of the population. All these are new parameters which have appeared due to population of an organism. Community definition. Populations of different species, plants and animals, living in the same habitat form a community. Dynamic in nature. Communities are dynamic collections of organisms, in which one population may increase and others may decrease due to fluctuation in biotic factors. Variety of community. Some communities are complex and well interrelated. Other communities may be simple. In a simple community, any change can have drastic and long-lasting effects. Relationships among the community. As community are collection of many different populations, so here different organisms' interactions can take many shapes. It may be predation is a biological interaction where a predator, an organism that is hunting, feeds on its prey, the organism that is attacked. Example: lion and zebra, bear and fish, and fox and rabbit. Parasitism is a relationship in which one species, the parasite, benefits at the expense of the host where the parasite also harms the host. Example are tapeworms, flukes, the Plasmodium species, and fleas. Is of relationships between two organisms where one organism benefits from the other without affecting it. Example is remorse that gets food from shark. is the way two organisms of different species exist in a relationship in which each individual benefits from the activity of the other. Example are lichens. Competition is the relationship between or among living things of an area for limited resources, such as food, space, shelter, ecosystem. Definition. A community with non-living surrounding is called as ecosystem. Examples. A pond, a forest, a grassland. Biosphere. The part of Earth inhabited by living organism and includes both living and non-living components. Living world in space distribution. Living world of today is enormous in size. It has been reproducing and evolving since the time of its origin on this planet. Today almost all parts of the world abounds in living organisms. The distribution of organisms in space can be studied through biomes. Biomes. A biome is a large regional community primarily determined by climate. It has been found that the major type of plant determines the other kind of plants and animals. How these are named. These biomes have, therefore, been named after the type of major plants or major feature of the ecosystem. Example. Forest biomes, grassland biomes, marine biomes, desert biomes, and tundra biomes. Living world in time, history. Since the time of origin of life on this planet, various organisms were evolved and dominated this planet during various periods of geological time chart. Geological time chart. It is a time sequence of the Earth's history in which different layers of Earth and fossils in these layers are studied to get the information about early life and process of evolution. This has been found by the evidence obtained from the discovery and study of fossils, which allows biologists to place organisms in a time sequence. This time sequence was formed by sedimentation method. As geological time passes and new layers of sediments are laid down, the older organisms should be in deeper layer, provided the sequence of the layers has not been disturbed. Radioactive method. In addition, it is possible to date age rocks by comparing the amounts of certain radioactive isotopes they contain. The older sediment layers have less of these specific radioactive isotopes than the younger layers. Comparison of layers. A comparison of the layers gives an indication of the relative age of the fossils found in the rocks. Therefore, the fossils found in the same layer must have been alive during the same geological period. You can have an idea about the temporal distribution of various forms of life, both plants and animals, in the various geological periods. Phyletic lineage. Definition. A phyletic lineage is an unbroken series of species arranged in ancestor to descendant sequence, with each later species having evolved from one that immediately preceded it. Importance. Way of evolution. The life today has come into existence through phyletic lineages or evolving populations of the organisms living in the remote past. Increase biodiversity. Evolutionary change often produces new species and then increases biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to number and variety of living organism in a particular area. Today 2,500,000 species of organisms, currently known to science. More than half of these are insects, 53.1%, and another 17.6% are vascular plants. Animals other than insects are 19.9% species, and 4% are fungi, algae, protozoa, and various prokaryotes. This list is far from being complete. Various careful estimates put the total number of species between 5 and 30 million. Out of these, only 2.5 million species have been identified so far. Indicate common origin of living organisms. If we had a complete record of the history of life on this planet, every lineage would extend back in time to the common origin of all early life. We lack the record because many soft-bodied organisms of the past had not left their preserved record as fossils. Biological method. Science is a systematized knowledge. Like other sciences, biological sciences also have a set methodology. It is based on experimental inquiry. Observation. The action or process of noticing and judging something or someone carefully in order to gain information. Biological method always begins with chance observation. Observations are made with 5 senses, viz., vision, hearing, smell, taste and touch, depending upon their functional ability. Types of observation. Observations can both be qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative. It describes usually the quality of a thing, such as color, feel, taste, etc. Quantitative. It is based on measurement, such as 2 kilograms, 5 meters, etc. Quantitative observations have accuracy over qualitative, as in the former variables are measurable and are recorded in terms of numbers. An observer organizes observations into data form and gives a statement as per experience and background knowledge of the event. Hypothesis. Tentative explanation of an observation is said to be hypothesis. There are certain ways of formulating hypothesis. Deductive reasoning. A hypothesis can be the result of deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning moves from the general to the specific. It involves drawing specific conclusion from some general principles, assumptions. Deductive logic of if and then is frequently used to frame testable hypothesis. Example 1. Premise number 1: if we accept that all birds have wings, then premise number 2: sparrows are birds, then we conclude that sparrows have wings. Example 2. If all green require sunlight for photosynthesis, then any green plant when placed in dark would not synthesize glucose, the end product of photosynthesis. Inductive reasoning. The other way of reasoning used in the formulation of hypothesis is inductive reasoning, which involves reasoning from the specific to the general. It begins with specific observations, and leads to the formation of general principle. Example: if we know that sparrows have wings and are birds, and we know that eagle, parrot, hawk, crow are birds, then we draw conclusion that all birds have wings. The science also, therefore, uses inductive methods to generalize from specific events. Other ways of hypothesis. In fact, sometimes scientists also use other ways to form a hypothesis, which may include 1. Intuitions or imagination, 2. Aesthetic preference, 3. Religious or philosophical ideas, 4. Comparison and analogy with other processes, 5. Discovery of one thing while looking for some other thing. These ways can also sometimes form basis for scientific hypothesis. Testing of hypothesis. Hypotheses are subjected to rigorous testing. Repeated exposure of a hypothesis to possible falsification increases scientists' confidence in the hypothesis when it is not falsified. Any hypothesis that is tested again and again without ever being falsified is considered well supported and is generally accepted. This may be used as the basis for formulating further hypothesis. So soon there is formation of a series of hypotheses. Theory. It is a series of hypotheses supported by the results of many tests. Good theory. A good theory is predictive and has explanatory power. One of the most important features of a good theory is that it may suggest new and different hypotheses. A theory of this kind is called productive. Testing of theory. However, even in the case of productive theory, the testing goes on. In fact, many scientists take it as a challenge and exert even greater efforts to disprove the theory. Law. If a theory survives its skeptical approach and continues to be supported by experimental evidence, it becomes a scientific law. A scientific law is a uniform or constant fact of nature. It is virtually an irrefutable theory. Biology is short in laws because of elusive nature of life. Laws are even more general than theories and afford answers to even more complex questions. Examples of biological laws are Hardy, Weinberg law and Mendel's laws of inheritance. Laws are even more general than theories and afford answers to even more complex questions. Examples of biological laws are Hardy, Weinberg law and Mendel's laws of inheritance. Biology and services of mankind. The science of biology had been helping mankind in many ways in increasing food production, in combating diseases and in protecting and conserving environment. Biological advances in the field of food and health have resulted in high standard of living. Methods to increase food production. Plant production has been tremendously increased by improving existing varieties and developing new high-yield and disease-resistant varieties of plants and animals used as food. To achieve these goals, there are various methods used in biology: selective breeding, the intentional breeding of organisms with desirable trait in an attempt to produce offspring with similar desirable characteristics or with improved traits. Plant and animal breeders have developed, through selective breeding, using the principles of genetics, new better varieties of wheat, rice, corn, chicken, cow and sheep. Poultry breeders have developed broilers for getting quick and cheap white meat. Genetic engineering. Genetic engineering refers to the direct manipulation of DNA to alter an organism's characteristics, phenotype, in a particular way. Genes for disease resistance and other desirable characters are introduced into plant, using the techniques of genetic engineering. Such transgenic plants having foreign DNA incorporated into their cells, can be propagated by cloning and by using special techniques such as tissue culture techniques, etc. Cloning. Production of genetically identical copies of organisms, cells by asexual reproduction. Tissue culture techniques. It is the growth of tissues or cells separate from the plant in a liquid growth medium. Chemical control. Plant pathogenic fungi and insect pests of crops which weaken the plants and reduce the yield had traditionally been controlled by using chemical pesticides, e.g. fungicides and insecticides. Drawbacks. Use of these chemicals poses toxicity problems for human beings as well as environmental pollution. Moreover, there are chances of insects becoming resistant to the effect of these chemicals. Biological control. In biological control, pests are destroyed by using some living organisms that compete with or even eat them up. Biological control eliminates all such hazards of chemical control. Example 1. An aphid that attacks walnut tree is being controlled biologically by a wasp that parasitizes this aphid. Example 2. Even some bacteria are being used as biopesticides. Integrated disease management. Effective control of a particular disastrous disease, or all the common diseases of a plant, can be achieved by using all relevant, appropriate methods of disease control. Such an approach of disease control is called integrated disease management. Hydroponic culture technique. In this technique, the plants are grown in aerated water to which nutrient mineral salts have been added to check nutrient requirement of plants. Need. Soil is a complex medium. It is almost impossible to conduct experiments on nutrient requirements of plants by growing them in soil, so plants are grown in aerated water. Significance. Hydroponic culture technique is used to test whether a certain nutrient is essential for plant or not. Astronaut may use it for growing vegetables. Hydroponic farming, however, is yet not feasible. Food preservation. Different techniques of food preservation have been developed for protecting food from spoilage and for its use and transport over long distance without damaging its quality. Pasteurization. One of these is pasteurization, developed by Louis Pasteur. It is being widely used for preservation of milk and milk products. It is the process of heating a liquid or a food to kill pathogenic bacteria to make the food safe to use. Disease control. Combating of diseases. There has been fantastic progress in the area of health and disease control. Three-pronged actions are usually taken against various diseases. Preventive measures. Vaccination, immunization, drug treatment, gene therapy. Preventive measures. The advances in biological sciences have provided us information about the causative agents of the diseases and their mode of transmission. AIDS. Causative agent. AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, is caused by HIV, human immune deficiency virus. Transmission. Virus spreads through free sexual contact, contaminated syringes or surgical instruments, etc. Therefore, prevention. Doctors advise us to take precautions on these fronts so that we do not contract the disease, which is at present incurable. Hepatitis. Causative agent. Hepatitis is caused by hepatitis virus. Transmission. Virus is spread through blood transfusion by using contaminated syringes and surgical instruments, etc. Prevention. In this case also doctors advise us to be careful and avoid the point of contact. Vaccination, immunization, vaccine. A preparation of killed microorganisms or living attenuated organisms that is administered to produce or artificially increase immunity to a particular disease is called as vaccine. Vaccination. The procedure of inoculation of vaccine to produce or artificially increase immunity to a particular disease is called as vaccination. Immunization. The phenomenon of development and increment of immunity due to inoculation of vaccine is called as immunization. Development of vaccine. Edward Jenner first developed the technique of vaccination in 1976. Cowpox pus is known as vacca, from Latin vacca equals cow. From this word evolved the present term vaccination and vaccine. Since then, inoculation or vaccination is carried out to make the people immune from viral or bacterial epidemics, or, for some disease, the individuals are vaccinated in their early life to make them immune to those diseases. Significance. Many diseases such as polio, whooping cough, measles, mumps etc. can easily be controlled by vaccination or shots. It is claimed that smallpox has been totally eliminated from the world by using this method. Scientists are making continuous efforts to develop vaccine against other diseases. Even vaccine against AIDS is being administered in humans on experimental basis. Drug treatment, gene therapy. Various types of therapies are applied to different categories of disease. Antibiotic therapy. If a person becomes sick with infectious diseases, he is subjected to the action of antibiotics which can kill bacteria. The antibiotics are, however, useful in bacterial disease that only when bacteria have not developed resistance to antibiotics. Radiotherapy. It is used to treat cancerous disease. The cancerous part is exposed to short-wave radiations from the radioactive material repeatedly at regular intervals. In Pakistan there are several centers which are carrying out radiotherapy to control cancer. Chemotherapy. It consists of administering certain anti-cancer chemicals to the patient at regular intervals. These chemicals may kill both cancerous and normal cells. Gene therapy. Recently a new technique has been developed to repair defective genes. This consists of isolating the normal gene and inserting it into the host through bone marrow cells. This is called gene therapy. Integrated disease management. Combating disease utilizing all methods as and when required and ensuring a participation of community in this program is known as integrated disease management. Requirement. This requires awareness of the community about the severity of the problem, its causes and its remedies. Significance. This is a very effective program for elimination and control of dangerous diseases from the human society. Example. Control of dengue in Pakistan. Cloning. It is the process of production of genetically identical copies of organisms, cells by asexual reproduction. Clone. A clone is defined as a cell or individual and all its asexually produced offspring. All members of clone are genetically identical except when mutation occurs. Natural cloning. In this cloning an organism reproduces by its natural methods. Generally no normal animal reproduces naturally by cloning. Several insects and many plants do, in some circumstances, whereas few do so regularly. Artificial cloning. It is the process of cloning which is done by the humans to get their own benefits. In 1997 scientists in Scotland succeeded in cloning a sheep named Dolly. Other mammalian species, mice and cows, have since been cloned. Procedures of cloning. Zygote cloning. In this procedure the nucleus from a fertilized egg is removed. A nucleus from a cell of a fully developed individual is inserted in its place. The altered zygote is then implanted in a suitable womb where it completes its development. The new individual formed in this way. It is a genetically identical clone of the individual whose nucleus was used. Thus cloning could make multiple copies of a desired genotype. Embryo cloning. Another type of cloning is the division of a single egg or early embryo into one or more separate embryos. This is the same process that normally creates identical twins. Offspring from this type of cloning are genetically identical but carry chromosomes from each of the two parents. This type of cloning has already been used to produce genetically identical cattle and other farm animals. Significance. Cloning is a technology for achieving eugenic aims. Man is likely to adopt cloning techniques for commercial production of valuable animals of known pedigree such as horses etc. Human cloning. At some places scientists are making attempts to clone human embryo which they believe can serve as transplant donor. There is a lot of controversy on this issue as to whether human cloning should be attempted or not. Protection and conservation of environment effect of industrialization. Industrialization has helped mankind to raise the standard of living. It has at the same time destroyed our environment. Industrial wastes. Tons of industrial waste, and effluents in solid, liquid or gas form are being injected into the environment by the industries. These effluents frequently contain sizable amount of certain very toxic even carcinogenic materials. Heavy metals like lead from automobiles, chromium from tanneries, are playing havoc to human health. Environmental pollution has reached alarming level in some countries. Need to solve environmental pollution. The problem, therefore, needs to be addressed or else it would soon be out of control, in which case the biocomponents of the world ecosystem would suffer irreparable loss and this environment would no longer support life on this planet. Role of biology to solve environmental pollution. Biology has helped mankind in attracting attention to this problem and the biologists are striving to find the solution to set this environment right wherever it has deteriorated. Biologists have already asked for the treatment of industrial effluents to be made obligatory. Biologists are trying to develop several ways of bioremediation. Bioremediation. Removal or degradation of environmental pollutants or toxic materials by living organisms is called as bioremediation. For example, algae have been found to reduce pollution of heavy metals by bioabsorption. Certain fungi are also used for bioremediation. Endangered species protection. The species which are imminent danger of extinction are called as endangered species. Such as panda biologists are also working out the list of endangered species of plants and animals which if not protected would soon be extinct. They have, therefore, stressed the needs for their protection. Environmental pollution in Pakistan. The environmental pollution is a national problem in Pakistan. Our rivers, canals are highly polluted with the mixing of city sewage and industrial wastes. The life in fresh water of Pakistan is towards decline. Fish populations have been most adversely affected. We need to take protective measures as early as possible. In cities, particularly the exhaust from automobiles is enormously adding lead into the atmosphere. There is then a need for lead-free petrol to reduce the pollution.